Welcome back to another VE2 Strategy Advisor podcast. We swapped seats today. I think James is going to ask me some questions. Today we're going to talk about life after the sale, post-transaction, and what some of the hurdles are there.
You know, Matt, you and I have been knowing each other since shortly after you sold your company, and we had a lot of discussions about kind of what life looked like for you post-sale, and I remember navigating those with you and just causing you a lot of consternation. I thought it'd be helpful. I think this is more common than people realize, and a lot of sellers don't expect it. They think once they sell, they're just going to ride off in the sunset and relax and have no stress. And unfortunately, that doesn't always seem to be the case. And I think it'd be really helpful if maybe you'd share some of your personal experiences kind of navigating that immediately after the sale and kind of how you found yourself to where you are today back in a healthy place again.
Yeah, and it took a while. I wish I had advice. I didn't have anyone that told me to even think about what that looked like. They didn't suggest to read the book or to give thought. One thing I really missed that I didn't consider pre-sale was the team and the friendships and the people. And I had a great management team, and we would all get together and we would make the company better, and I could delegate, and that was fun to me. And then I woke up the next day and I didn't have an office, and I'm just riding around in my truck trying to figure out what to do next. And, there's a loss of identity that definitely happens. And then you try to figure out what's my purpose. So it was a struggle. And for me, it lasted 3 or 4 years.
Well, is it fair to say, you mentioned going into the office and just that social aspect and the relationships you had with people for so long? I mean, you had folks that worked with you 10, 15 years.
Yeah, some for 25 years, and we had fun together, and we did a lot of things after work together, and we helped grow a company together. So, yeah, that's definitely something that I missed. I think since then I've learned a lot, and it's things that I like to share with our clients at V2, and there's 2 or 3 books that I highly suggest they read. But it's important to know, I think, ahead of time, what's tomorrow look like. I mean, I went from having, actually 2 offices in Chattanooga and Knoxville, and a place to go and something to be part of, to riding around in my truck by myself. And it felt lonely. Mm-hmm. And, friends treat you differently. I think former employees treat you differently. And then you have what we call opportunity confusion. What do I get into next? And then, believe it or not, when you do make some money, you have everybody calling wanting some of it.
Yeah, so talk about that. And it's not always, I don't want to paint this as it's always nefarious, because I don't think it is. But when people realize you've had a successful exit, or the press does get out there, as I've seen being the CPA for a lot of folks that exited, and I would get a lot of these opportunities they'd be providing, it just seems like everybody's got an opportunity they're wanting some capital for. And how do you navigate that? How do you say no? Because you can't do everything.
Well, I was always, my whole career, I wanted to please everyone. And unfortunately, I said yes almost all the time. A lot of times that creates a lot of stress, trying to please everybody and do everything. I actually, post-sale, I wrote a book once I figured some of this out, and there's a whole chapter about saying no. And I think no is not a negative word. I think it's a very powerful word. And when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. And it took me a long time that, by me saying no, I was saying yes to my family and the stuff I wanted to do. But it took me a long time to figure it out.
But it is easy to look at that no as just the no in relation to that person. But with the perspective, you go, well, for every no I say, I am allocating this time purposefully to something that I say is meaningful to me.
Sure, and it's difficult to manage time because you do get stretched in a lot of different directions. Of course, you have wealth advisors call and a lot of nonprofits, and it's hard to. And Jenny and I decided we did a donor advised fund with a lot of the proceeds from my sale, and then we chose what we were passionate about and who we wanted to help. So we did that on the philanthropic side, but they come from everywhere, and they still do. I get a lot of LinkedIn messages. I don't read most of those. So if you want me, go to V2 Strategy Advisors or email me at matt@v2strategy.com. But yeah, there's a we could talk an hour about this, but I feel like that owner needs to have a plan before they sell, or take 6 months or a year off. Just take time to figure it out. Because I was always the guy, I felt like I had to continue to be the guy. So therefore,
Well, that was your identity.
yeah, my identity was being the guy. So I immediately jumped into real estate ventures and I invested in private equity stuff. I invested in a couple of startups. I started a concrete coatings business, and you and I, on your whiteboard at your office one day, there was 15 things listed there, and we were trying to figure out how do we narrow this down. And it goes against everything I believe, because I'm really big on focus. I think if you focus on something, you can achieve it. But you can't focus on a dozen things, or you're just going to half-ass a dozen things.
You're going to have 10 failures and no successes.
Yeah, and I lived through some of that. I will say I don't have a ton of regret in it because I learned a lot from it. I also, when you do feel lonely, and, you can ask AI and it'll tell you the top 10 things that business owners go through after they sell. And we've hit on a lot of them, especially purpose and identity and how your friends will treat you, how former employees treat you, the opportunity confusion. Alcohol is a big one for a lot of people, and it was for me for about a year. And thank God I had good friends like my buddy Todd that pulled me out of that, and Jesus Christ. But I think there's a lot of things that business owners should at least think about and not jump into stuff too quickly.
Yeah, well, it's easy to do, again, because you want to please people. You're excited that people are approaching you with these things, but then at some point it becomes overwhelming.
Well, and I don't know why, and maybe it's human nature. I try my best to not be this way, but people don't like other people to succeed. I don't know why I would get treated differently at the country club, or they're, whispering behind my back. I never understood that. I would love to see everybody be successful, but most people don't.
Well, I think if I had to guess, it comes more of a place from it highlights their own insecurities or failures when there's this objective material success to compare against.
Well, and I think there's also a misconception. A lot of times you see somebody be successful and sell their business, and there's been a few really big transactions with companies here in our local town, and people think they got lucky or their father did that for them. And I know different. I know how hard I worked for 30 years and being awake till 2 a.m. working and having to go get that line of credit and sweat making payroll. And, a lot of folks, especially former employees, unfortunately, we had a great culture, but I treated people good. I advance paid a lot of people. I've paid for more than a couple of funerals. I've paid for transmissions, and I've made car loans, and I treated people really good. And then the day I sold, I was the bad guy. So that hurts. And so I'm not sure. I've had to accept that now. And more every day, I care less what other people think about me. But it took a few years to get to that place, because for a long time, I really cared.
Yeah, well, and I think that's part of what's made you successful is you care, but it's also what can eat you up inside, because you can't care about everything. And I remember I had, when I was in my professional career, I had a partner sit me down and remind me, I can't care more than my client does.
Yeah.
And, I would let these things eat me up personally when the person it impacted wasn't even that worried about it.
Yeah, you're usually thinking about it more than the other person.
Right. Because we just have that natural desire. We want to pull through. We want to be the guy that comes through and figures it out. Now, one thing you mentioned that I think is interesting, you discussed how you eventually got there, but that, without going into too much detail, it sounds like that was not necessarily a fun process. And it sounds like you were kind of wandering on your own for a little bit, trying to figure your path through the forest. And what you're doing now is helping to just kind of highlight, hey, some of these things, maybe you don't have to go through it the hard way I did. Maybe you can preempt some of this.
It was definitely a process. It wasn't really a fun process, and I did a lot of praying along the way. And I had a few good books recommended to me. There's a book called Halftime, and the author says, look, you got a box here, and you can only put so much in this box. And what are you going to put in it? And I could fill it with booze and opportunity and work and golf and go crazy, or I could fill it with my family. And I finally decided that's what I was going to put in my box. But it takes a good while to figure that out. And that's why a lot of people, when they do sell their business, a lot of the ones that have gotten it right, they just take a pause. And there's nothing wrong with that. Take 6 months and don't do a thing.
Well, and one of the beautiful aspects about what we do is if we do our job right, we should create that opportunity for them to be able to prioritize what maybe they haven't been able to prioritize historically because they've been focused on surviving.
Well, and I think it's also, as humans, and myself being a Christian, I think I need to give back to others. And I've always enjoyed doing that. And this gives me, what we're doing now gives me a way to do that for people. So finding a purpose on what you're going to do next. And we've mentioned it in previous podcasts. You also need to have fun. I need to pick what I have a good time doing. What it took me a while to figure out is I'm in control of my calendar.
Yeah.
I'm in control of all these text messages, and I'm in control of what I do next. And that goes back to saying no. And sometimes it hurts. I've been blown up since we've been doing this podcast this morning, and we had a press release come out this past week, and it's just people wanting to meet. I wish they wanted to meet so I could help them sell their business, because that's what we do. But a lot of them, which I don't mind doing, they want help in preparing. They may be a few years away, and I really do enjoy doing that. But I also have to respect my time and my family's time.
Well, I remember you and I were on the golf course probably a year and a half after you sold your company, and you were making the comment to me one day about how just sometimes it's overwhelming always being the guy that gets every question. Kind of anytime something's not going right, you get the call, hey, Matt, can you help me? And I would venture to say that is the case because historically you've provided value to these people. So I don't fault them for reaching out. But I remember saying to you, I said, Matt, the only thing I think is worse than getting a call every time something's wrong is never getting the call because no one trusts you.
Well, and that makes me feel good because I can help them. And I'm a connector in a sense. A lot of times I was just giving them somebody's phone number to call to help make it happen. But I do still enjoy that a lot. And that's where I find my purpose is helping others. And now I can do it, and we can make some money doing it, and I can really help a lot of these home service business owners. If I look at other people in our industry, like Brian Gottlieb's well known in our industry, had a wildly successful exit, and he's about to release his second book. He's got a company where he helps people grow. He's got speaking engagements all the time, and that's where he finds his purpose. And in a sense, what I'm doing now, another exit, Brian Elias, friend of mine from Detroit, he sold a replacement window business, and now he's building what he wants to be the largest flooring company in the country, and it's called Refloor, and he's in multiple states now, and he wanted to keep doing that. So I think it's different for everybody, but I think it's important to chill out and figure it out without just going crazy like I did.
Yeah, I think great points, and thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and doing so. This is a sensitive subject that not a lot of people feel comfortable talking about. So thank you for being willing to
My pleasure. And my only advice is for anybody out there that does have the opportunity to sell your business, you're going to go through it. It's just how do you handle it? And I'm happy to help you handle it. Just reach out, and I'm in the middle of a book right now. I'm not sure the title yet, but it's something about selling without regret. And so I hope that'll help some people out there.